Welcome back to A Good Pour. I'm Kathryn Good. This has been season 2 of A Good Pour. We have completed our interviews, and it's been a really good season. We just want to take a couple episodes and kind of recap what we've learned. You're going to hear just some different themes and some different things we've learned from our fantastic guest. So first, we are going to talk about some marketing lessons that we have learned from our guest. It's always interesting to me when we talk to business leaders and nonprofit leaders. I guess, having a marketing host, marketing is going to come up, but it feels like we learned some really interesting things. So I'm excited for you to hear this episode. First up, we have Jason Elkins, who always teaches me so much. And I know you learned a lot from this episode too. He talks a lot about personal connection. And while marketing has a whole lot of tactics we can use, it's still 80%, I feel like, of most businesses comes from referrals. And referrals is all about relationship and personal connection. So the lessons that Jason teaches, both in this podcast and in his 100 Cups curriculum, is really just about taking the time to invest in other people. So hear what Jason has to say.
The idea that I had for marketing was just going to have 100 cups of coffee in 100 days with 100 business owners or business people. And I figured that would give me like kind of a quarter to figure out if I could make enough money on my own to sustain a business as opposed to going back to work for somebody. So that was the origin. And after about 15, 20 cups, some really cool things started happening.
One of my favorite episodes, of course, this season was DJ, because it just told the full circle story of this podcast and our approach to video. DJ, of course, has moved to California, as you learned in that lesson, and Josh Kurd has taken over for us. But DJ has some important lessons in using video and why it's important. Hear what he has to say in this clip.
I could always go to all the annoying statistics about how 80% of iPhone users or phone users are watching video. I could go through all that, but everyone already knows that. Video and audio has become such an integral part in our interaction with media anyway. I think video now is because it's so easy to do, like everyone's got a camera in their pocket now. It's a tool and a resource for anyone to be able to use. So being able, especially with all of our guests that have been on this show, like nonprofits, businesses, entrepreneurs, government, you have the opportunity to tell your story, and within a few steps have it out there for everyone to watch and read, and you own your story. And I think that's so important, because word of mouth is also good, but you being able to tell your story. And that was something I was always interested in.
What's also really cool about video is it can be just the bloopers. It can be the laughs, the stories that people tell. It really shines a light on the culture, the voice of that client, of the person who is speaking, in ways that's really hard to get if we're just, interviewing, or they're writing a blog. When we can video and then really use the personality behind the client to shape the rest of our content. Here you'll hear me talk about just how DJ has helped us turn video into just an integral part of how we are helping our clients. I love that anyone has a camera or, phone, they can do it. And some of this, I really credit, your therapist background and looking for the story. But also just the idea of, interviewing, and, we all want to talk about ourselves. But, at some point, the person listening is like, okay, move on. Quit talking about yourself, right? Or quit talking about your business. What can I learn from you? Or what lessons have you learned that have made you this person? And that's been really cool to do together. Because there's, before this year, we really, we would bring in a videographer if we needed it. If there's, a hero background image on a website, or, things that there was a specific need for video, but now video really drives all of our content.
Right.
And I think the awesome part is that you get those side notes or you get that side personality. So we had a lot of nonprofit guests. You know that I love nonprofit guests on this podcast. They always have a story to tell. Nonprofits always need more volunteers or more donations. And so I love giving nonprofits an opportunity to tell their story on this podcast. One of the things that really struck me was Kate Ritchie and Habitat and how they've really used stats and stories to help communicate their needs, help communicate the job that they've done, help communicate just what our community needs. Stats and stories are always a good place to start when you're looking at marketing, and numbers just can help tell your story. So hear what she has to say about that.
Well, through marketing, through good organizations such as yourself, you've definitely helped us craft a lot of our messages. Really, social media has been our biggest outlet. One of the things we talk about a lot is numbers. So having stats and stories to be able to tell about that good work. Yeah. You, of course, and most nonprofits can show, on paper, this is how many people we've helped or, things of that nature. So I know that that's been important to you and numbers really in the need, right? Yeah. Like it's not just the numbers of people you've helped, but the amount that you still have to help.
Yeah. So next up is Jason Elkins when we are talking about listening and what a powerful tool listening is. Jason says that 70% of the time when he is in a conversation, he is listening and 30% he is talking. And that's pretty rare, I would say. We just like to hear ourselves talk and that's okay too. We have things to share. But when we are building those relationships, we just really need to pay attention on how much we are listening. So Jason gives us some tips on how to do that.
So the concept there is 70-30. So I always think about that when I'm going into a meeting. I need to listen 70% of the time and talk 30. You and I have been in meetings with other people trying to sell us, and they talk 90% of the time, and we get maybe a question, and we don't even know if the product's any good because they didn't ask any questions. So the listening and then thinking about every person you meet has to have a sign on their forehead that says, make me feel important. So that edification and maybe some encouragement, some kind words is really helpful there.
Another one of my favorite nonprofits is CASA. I love CASA because of the work that they do in our court systems. It's such important work, but I also love CASA because they're a little bit of a secret and I really want more people to know about them. So CASA with Sonia joined us to talk about the misconceptions of CASA and just the stories that we don't know, that there's so many things going on with our kids that we assume that it's certain kids having to deal with this, that it's certain types of things that they're having to deal with. And it's really, she tells us that the things that we see on TV, the things that we see in these kind of made up court cases, they're happening in our county. And it's important that we address those things. And so she talks about how addressing misconceptions in marketing can help tell your story. If we call out the things people are getting wrong, that it can help in our marketing to set the story straight. Talk to me about misconceptions about the kids that you're assisting, that you're advocating for.
Our kids. A lot of people have a sort of picture that comes to mind when you think about a kid that's involved with DCS. And what I tell people is the kids that we serve go to school with our kids. They play sports with our kids. They are in band. They cheer. They're in dance. All the things that your kids do, our CASA kids do. They just have the unfortunate time in their life where the departments had to get involved because things are not safe for them at home. The number of kids we serve looks just like the population of our county. We serve kids in every city in Sumner County. Most of our kids right now are from Hendersonville, with Gallatin and Westmoreland coming in second and third. And most of our kids right now, we sort of have an ebb and a flow, but most of our kids are 0 to 10 or 11. We have a few older kids, but we're seeing lots of younger kids come in because we started Safe Baby Court here in Sumner County. And so that's our 0 to 3 court. And so we have several safe baby cases that we are working right now. And those children are children who were born drug exposed. By and large, those are safe baby kids.
Let's talk about customer service. This is such an important part of marketing and often one that we overlook. The way we treat the people that are walking into our store, the way we treat our clients means so much to that person. The way we treat our people is often the culture that we have inside of our organizations. So you can have the best marketing in the world, but if the employees that are communicating that marketing, that are helping sell your products and services, if they are not demonstrating the best customer service, then it does not matter how good your products and services are. It does not matter how good your marketing is. If they are not communicating good customer service, you're going to have a bad review all of a sudden, just a bad impression, and then they're going to go and share that with other people, and it's just a recipe for disaster. I've seen it time and time again. I loved this conversation with Jared. It had brought so much attention to culture and the ways we can take care of our employees, and I know you'll enjoy it too.
For us, it's really easy to provide bus service for our community because that's what we do. It's really easy for us to support different programs like Young Life and other ministries here.
I mean, lots of churches.
Yeah. It's easy for us to do that. It was a little bit harder for us to look at our employees and say, how can we help you?
You will often hear me say that referrals and reviews, the way people are talking about you being top of mind, is one of the most important marketing tactics. You will hear me say, I want you to be top of mind, top of search, and tell your story. The reason top of mind is so important is because when someone says, hey, do you know a place that I can do this? You want to be top of mind. So that's one of the reasons I love this conversation with Becca Fitz with Bit of Heaven Catering. She definitely comes to mind when we think of catering in Gallatin, and she talks about how word of mouth has become so important to her business. So listen in.
This year, during this podcast, I want to talk to businesses about how they're telling people about good work. Mm-hmm. Sometimes my favorite people, the best people, just people that are doing good work, sometimes we struggle to tell other people about it. We feel like we should be humble, and we should. But I also think marketing and telling others about the good work you're doing is a way to shine our light. It's a way to tell our story, and it's honestly to tell about the goodness that's going on in our life and give glory to God. So I know it can be a struggle, and I really think I want to dive into this with businesses about how we do this. But can you think of ways that you tell others about it?
So as far as sharing our good work and our good story, I would say we probably don't really do a lot to do that through the business, but word of mouth for us, whether it's marketing for the business or anything, has really been our biggest advocate. And so through doing a lot of the feeding the teams, I love just being able to, coaches will call me, hey, can you provide a meal for this game, or we've got an away game, or and anytime that we see, almost anytime I see that on Facebook or Instagram, someone asking for that, I'm like, hey, I could do a meal for 20 people.
So in every industry, we have industry jargon. We have terms that only people in the industry understand. The school system is no different. And so when Dr. Scott Langford sat down and talked about kind of the jargon that can happen within the school system that maybe teachers, even students may know, but parents do not. He talked about the importance of limiting that jargon and making sure parents understand what's going on in the schools. This is an ongoing marketing tool. I'll often tell my team, make sure we explain what that is. Or when I sit down with a guest, even on this podcast, and they mention something, I often have to say, well, tell everyone what that is. So it's just an important marketing tool to make sure that the words we use are being understood by the people we are trying to communicate with.
Reach out and have a conversation. I think some of the things that we're trying to do from my position is, I joke that sometimes the two institutions I've spent most of my adult life in was the Army and schools. And we develop a jargon in both that's almost incomprehensible to people. So from our side, how do we create language that's not jargon free so that parents can understand what their children are learning? Because then that creates points of contact for us to have a conversation. We're working on a kindergarten report card right now that says things like knows their consonants. if I'm a parent, I can understand consonants and vowels. I don't understand standard RL 4.320165. So simple, jargon-free language where we can create dialogue.
So listen in on how Taylor finds social media to be good. And yes, it can be addicting. And yes, there's so much noise that can happen. But when you are using it for to raise money and for transparency's sake, it can be really helpful.
How do people, other than social media and the logo, I mean, you've done a great job both with the branding and social media. How do you tell people about what's going on? Do you have other ways that you tell people?
I really feel like it's word of mouth from other community members, from people who have either been a beneficiary from something that we have done or people that have donated to some of our causes. I try to be very transparent with all of the funds, where money is going, how it's going to be spent. I know that sometimes social media gets a bad rap, but man, it can be used for so much good.
Yes, it can.
So much good.
Yes, for sure.
It's fun. It's interesting to actually see what marketing is in the real world, because I think a lot of my schoolwork and things like that, marketing is a textbook definition of, this and that. But being able to actually see, especially your contributions to the community that you're in, and how this company is focused on good works and showing that to multiple people, and just being able to see that in real world aspects has been really helpful, even in the short time that I've already been here, and learning truly what it is to do good work and how to convey that to the community and how to just show that and shine light onto those kind of things.
How often you have a meeting, you engage with a prospect or a client, and you get a thank you after the fact. And it just extends that conversation, right? So Jason talks to us about the importance of just a follow-up thank you, whether that's a text or an email. He, of course, recommends the handwritten note, but just what an important lesson that sending a thank you is in the marketing relationship you have with people.
And then I think it's really critical on follow-up if you are interested in ever working with that person again. And that could be as simple as like a thank you text or email, and maybe an introduction to them. So there's some certain things that I do in the class that's systematized, but the main thing is that 70-30 split on listening, and then making sure everybody you meet, maybe they leave in a little better state than they were when they got there.
Thanks again for joining us for A Good Pour Season 2. This was the kind of compilation of marketing tips. I hope you enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing you in 2025 with more good stories to tell.